Lesson 22, Section 2. In this presentation, we will be introduced to the subjunctive mood and look at the different aspects of the subjunctive, the present, aorist, and perfect, and then at some uses of the subjunctive. These are the moods in Greek for verbs. Already we've learned the indicative and the imperative. We turn today to the subjunctive, leaving only the optative for later. In English, we do have a subjunctive mood, but we use it rather differently than the Greeks used theirs. Also, we use it rather sparingly in modern English. This being the case, we shall consider the subjunctive only as used in Greek. In Greek, the subjunctive is not only simple to form, but its endings are also the same in both the present, aorist, and perfect. This is excellent news. These are the forms of the verb pau a, I stop, in the present indicative, pau a, pau ace, I stop, you stop. To get to the subjunctive, what we're going to do is take our short vowels in our endings, epsilon, omicron, and then this diphthong u there at the end, and we are going to lengthen them. Epsilon becomes eta, omicron becomes omega, as does the u diphthong in the plural third person. So we see a lengthening of the short vowels in the endings. And the only other change we have to make in the singular, second and third persons singular, is right here, where we see eta followed by iota. This iota is, you might call it adscript. It's written after the vowel that it follows. We're going to write it subscript, simply. So eta iota becomes eta with an iota subscript there. And that's it. These are the forms of pau a, I stop, in the present subjunctive. One thing you'll note right away is that in the first person singular, pau a, present subjunctive, this is actually the same as the present indicative. So we want to be careful. There's some ambiguity here. Sometimes we will mistake for an indicative form what is actually a subjunctive form in that first person singular. Now to form the aorist subjunctive, we are, as usual, going to add a sigma to our stem to get our aorist stem, really. And that's it. All of the endings, once again, are the same. For the perfect subjunctive, we're going to do what we usually do to form the perfect stem, which is reduplicated consonant at the beginning there, and the kappa at the end of the stem that begins with a vowel or diphthong. That ends with a vowel or a diphthong. So pepauk is our perfect stem, and the endings, once again, are just the same. So we're going to see the same endings for the subjunctive all over the place. We'll have to pay careful attention to the stem to tell apart these different aspects: present, aorist, and perfect. Uses of the subjunctive. In general, the subjunctive in Greek is used to speak of things desired or feared. Like verbs in the imperative, verbs in the subjunctive are always negated with me. The subjunctive can be used in two ways. It can be used independently, that is, in a sentence's main clause, or it can be used dependently, that is, in a subordinate clause. We're only going to take a look today at independent uses of the subjunctive, subjunctives that stand on their own. In deliberative questions, this is one use of the subjunctive expresses indecision, either real or feigned, and may be translated shall or should. We'll see some examples in just a second. Tas spondas lusomen. Tas spondas is the plural accusative form of hai spondai, which literally means drink libations, but really we understand as the treaty. And our verb here is a form of lu-a, to break or dissolve or destroy or undo. And we see by our ending, amen, that long omega, that we have a subjunctive and not an indicative form of the verb. And the sigma there at the end of the stem, the lu-a stem, tells us that this is an aorist subjunctive. And again, this is a question, obviously, because we see the semicolon-like thing at the end. So a good way to translate this would be, shall we break the treaty? And this is the aorist aspect, so we're talking about a one-time sort of thing, a quick sort of action, a final sort of action. We're not drawing attention to the process of breaking the treaty. Treaties can be broken very easily, very quickly by single moves, so it makes sense to use the aorist here. So this is an instance of the deliberative subjunctive. The subjunctive as used in a deliberative question. Shall we break the treaty? We also see the subjunctive used in exhortations. It's used in the first person in exhortations to make proposals and is equivalent to our let us or let me, depending on whether we see it in the singular, let me, or the plural, let us. For instance, Lusomen tas spandas. This is different in two different ways from the previous one that we just saw. First of all, it's not a question. We see that, and we happen to see the word order here changed a little bit to reflect, perhaps, the different sort of speech act. So this is, again in the plural, let us break the treaty. Lusomen tas spandas. Not shall we break the treaty, but let us break the treaty. An exhortation. We see the aorist subjunctive here. We also see the subjunctive used independently in prohibitions. And here we only see the aorist subjunctive used to issue negative commands. So, me luse te tas spandas. Here, ete is the second person plural subjunctive form of the verb lua. This is, again, an aorist. And it's a negative command in the aorist. So actually we have to use the subjunctive. This is kind of an interesting case in Greek. We do not see the imperative, the negative imperative used in the aorist. If we want to issue a negative command in the aorist, we have to use the aorist subjunctive. So, me luse te tas spandas, we're referring to a group of people, and we are saying, do not break the treaty. This is a prohibition. We see the aorist subjunctive along with me. The differences between present, aorist, and perfect subjunctives have to do with aspect, not tense. So just as with infinitives, differences present, aorist, and perfect, future usually have to do with aspect and not tense. So here with subjunctive forms. And we talked about why it's appropriate in the examples we just saw to see the aorist subjunctive used rather than the present or the perfect subjunctive. For the forms of the subjunctive, you can look at pages 62 to 63. And for further reading on the uses of the subjunctive, you can take a look at page 164 and pages 168 to 169. This further reading might help clarify the differences between these different uses of the subjunctive. Thank you very much.